Hi folks, welcome to the Ask the R podcast, where this is the first episode of 2026. Let's dig right in. So we're back, 2026, the very first episode of 2026. And wow, what a year 2025 has been. If you haven't seen, over the Christmas period, I put out a predictions video, which is gaining some real traction, and it's just a format that's a little bit different from the podcast, and it gives us an opportunity to really put out some detailed, some really meaty information that's out there in the wild. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. So in these first couple of podcasts of 2026, what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the Q&A format. We've got some guests coming in later on. It's probably going to be in February onwards, to be honest. But if you're at all interested in coming on the pod, having a chat about all things planning in the UK, specifically in relation to trees and ecology, or maybe even just related subjects like topographical surveying, tree surgery, things like that, drop me a line and we can get you in. I'm coming to you from our slightly modified podcast studio. This is going to get better over the coming month or so. We've still got some walling and stuff to go up here and some changes to make. And you'll see I'm holding the microphone to stop it banging all over the place, and because we haven't got proper stands for it yet. So we're really going to up the production value of the podcast in 2026. So we're looking forward to that. Also, it is today, the 5th of January, so everyone's back at work downstairs today, and we've got a lot of snow on the ground. And because we've got a lot of snow on the ground, I have got a co-host with me today. He was at one point a regular guest on the podcast, but I'll welcome back James, my son. How are you doing today?
Good, you?
Yeah, I'm not so bad. You're looking forward to skiving off school for the next few days?
Definitely.
When were you supposed to go back to school?
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
All right. And it's Monday today,
Yeah.
so you've got another couple of days. Well, James is holding on to my phone because in the background my laptop's being used for some onboarding of a new employee today, and I'd really not thought ahead. So I've got like baby brain, I think, or something going on today. So James is holding on to my phone, and he has got a spreadsheet of the questions that we have on to the YouTube channel from listeners. So we've got 4 questions that we're going to run through today, and then from the next episodes onwards we'll be going back to our features. So we'll be bringing back You Couldn't Plan It and Panic Line. But first, let's go to the questions. So James, what is the first question? Who's it from and what are they saying?
Matthew from Essex says, can I remove poor trees without a survey?
Can I remove poor trees without a survey? It depends what it's in relation to, Matthew, essentially. You don't need, if the tree isn't protected, if it isn't protected by a tree preservation order and it's not in a conservation area, then there's absolutely nothing to stop you going ahead and removing the tree. The only time that I would exercise caution is if you are looking to do any form of planning application and you might get caught up with BNG. I don't mean to keep referring you back to that predictions video, but I talk about BNG, the changes that are coming with BNG, and it's probably worthwhile you checking that one out. The only other time it might be worth looking into it in a little bit more detail is if the tree can be seen from the street or anything like that. Might be worth just having a quick chat with your neighbours and letting them know what you're doing or what you're planning. But if it's in relation to a planning application, then I would exercise caution, because the local authority can basically view that as facilitatory felling, and that is viewed particularly poorly. If they think that you're removing a tree to basically get the jump on them to make sure that there aren't any constraints to the planning application, then that can cause real problems for you moving forwards. It can also cause issues from a BNG perspective as well. So I'd exercise caution if it's in relation to planning application, but I don't think they say that, do they? What was the question again, James?
Matthew said, can I remove poor trees without a survey?
Yeah, so there's not a lot of information there. The yes and no, yes and no, which isn't terribly helpful. If it's for a planning application, no, get specialist advice from an arboricultural consultant. If it's outside of the requirements for a planning application, then crack on. But again, get good advice from a tree surgeon. What's up next, James?
Caroline from South London says, how do topographical surveys relate to tree and ecological surveys?
Oh, okay. So, Caroline. Okay, so a topographical survey. What a topographical survey is basically is a measured survey. So most people, when they're putting in a planning application, they will need some form of base map which accurately plots various sort of information. So it can be things like curb lines, it can be the trees and the houses and all that kind of good stuff. What the topographical surveyor picks up is dependent on the instruction that you give to them, essentially. So you need to make sure that you give them a really, really clear brief on exactly what it is that you want them to do. How it relates to tree and ecologies, well, so from a tree survey perspective, if we haven't got a topographical survey and our team are going out to do a survey, then they're almost going to be like sticking a finger in the air, and the tree positions are going to be plus minus 2 to 3 meters, which for most purposes is actually okay, even though it's hugely inaccurate. If you've got a topographical survey, it means the topographical surveyor on site has stood next to the tree or shot a laser at the tree, and they've captured that tree position in a 3D space with very high accuracy, sometimes less than a centimetre. So that's just going to make everything much more accurate if your topo surveyor picks up the trees. So they'll pick up the centre point of the tree. They might pick up the diameters. And they might pick up the crown spread. So if you've got a topo survey and it shows the trees, it's going to be much more accurate, basically. In terms of ecology surveys, it's less important, although it does enable the ecologist to accurately map the habitats on site a lot more clearly, which is awesome. It's also essential for BNG. The higher the quality of the mapping, the better and more accurate the results will be. I think we've got time for another couple of questions, James. We're on to page 2, aren't we?
Yeah. Lisa from Manchester says, what tree protection measures do I need for retain trees on a site?
Retain trees, okay. So tree protection fencing, most people tend to use harass fencing. I don't actually know what harass stands for. We should Google that. Kian will Google harass, HERAS, and find out. It must stand for something, but that is the spec of general construction fencing. So what you need is harass protection fencing or harass fencing, world mesh fencing, and that gets set up around the tree. It will show you on your tree protection plan where the line of the tree protection fencing will go. Might be a red line, might be a purple line, depends on the consultant that you use, but it will show you exactly where that needs to go. So you'll spray paint that out on site, make sure the measurements are correct, and then you'll hire in this harass panelling. It's a couple of quid per panel per week usually for the duration of the construction phase. But what's really important, if you go to a general construction site, you've probably seen it after a period of high wind or something like that, this fencing just falls over because it just sits in rubber feet. Tree protection fencing cannot be moved or be movable by anybody other than the tree consultant. So what's really, really important is that it's braced. So what usually happens is it's braced from the midpoints with scaffold poles down to the ground, with little posts driven into the ground, and that harass protection fencing, that will give you a really robust tree protection measure, and that will stop the builders moving it out the way to dump waste and all that kind of good stuff, because it's there to protect the tree's roots from compaction and erosion and runoff and all that kind of good stuff as well. So go on then, we've got time for one more, James.
Jacob from Bristol says, when should tree surgery be done in relation to construction works?
Right at the very start. So I always suggest what when I was a tree surgeon, what would often happen is you would get to site to do the facility. Only tree work that is authorised as part of the construction can be carried out. I should hasten to mention that. So it will be listed in the arboricultural data tables essentially, and the tree surgeon, we would go out to site and we'd say, the guys would be like, "Oh, it's all right, lads, we've done it for you," and they'll have cut off all the limbs and bulldozed it into a big pile, and then expect you to chip it up when it's all covered in mud and crap and everything. So the tree surgery work, if it's to facilitate the development, it should be done before any other site operations get carried out. Then the tree protection fencing goes up. The tree work should be carried out to BS 3998 2010. So all the pruning cuts and everything should be done right. All the waste should be dealt with right, and then the tree protection fencing should be set up. Have we got time for one more 12-minute? I think. Go on then. One more.
Zachary from Aberdeen says, what if heavy machinery needs to enter a tree's root zone?
So all of that should be dealt with in your arboricultural method statement and shown on your tree protection plan. So that should all be discussed with it's called an ACAL, an arboricultural clerk of works. So they will talk to you about all of that before site work start. But usually you put down ground protection boarding. So that could be anything from track mats to plywood over a compressible layer like wood chip or something like that. Basically what you're trying to do is spread the load, because it's compaction. Trees basically breathe through their roots. Oxygen and moisture travels through the soil to the tree roots, and any compaction in that root protection area can have a negative effect on the health of the tree. So it's important that that compaction is minimised, and that's normally done through ground protection boarding. Sometimes the tree protection fencing will actually sit outside of that. So it may be that you've got a site access way going through a root protection area, and something a little bit more permanent might have to be put down, like a cell web track or something like that. But yeah, that's awesome. Thanks a lot for that, James. And for those of you that have listened to the podcast for a while, you'll note that when James first came on here, when he was like 8 or 9, he couldn't say arboricultural, and he can say it now. Can you say arboricultural?
Arboricultural.
What about topographical?
Topographical.
It's nailed it, hasn't he? He's gonna take the job from me. So that's it from us for this first episode of January 2026. If you want to find out a little bit more about what we do, you can go to our website, which is rover-group.co.uk. You can also find some of my books on Amazon. We've got the planning application hack and various different books for architects and all that kind of stuff. Or you can even sign up to my weekly newsletter, which isn't salesy at all. It's just good old-fashioned advice, and that goes out every Monday morning at 7 a.m. So that's it from me, and I will catch you next week.